Hey, Pasa Calexico. Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin our conversation today, I just want to make sure that I say this. This is not an endorsement. It's just a conversation with my guest today. I try not to endorse anybody. I try to be as biased as I can whenever it's campaign season. But I just want to offer the people a chance to get to know the candidates with the conversation. And today, my guest today is Joey Acuna, who is running for the 36th district, for the assembly member for the 36th district in California. So, Mr. Acuna, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. I know that it's crunch time.
We're almost there.
you need to be everywhere right now.
Tell everybody it'll all stop soon.
Yeah. Before we begin our conversation about politics and all this, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm born and raised in the Coachella Valley, city of Coachella mostly. Lived there most of my life. Grew up there. I have a son. I currently work for Intercare, actually out, both counties. I do paperwork, not blood, as I always joke. I also consult for one of the local tribes doing infrastructure, mostly economic development. And I'm also the president of the Coachella Valley Unified School District's Board of Trustees. So it's kind of a lot of stuff. 3 jobs, I say. One's unpaid for the most part. The school district one, you get a little stipend.
Yeah.
Just for gas. It isn't even gas money the way gas is right now, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, and again, lifelong. I was born and raised in the valley, Coachella Valley. My dad actually, strangely, was born in Brawley. Okay. My uncle and my aunt raised my cousins in Brawley, so we kind of have a little bit of connection with the valley here, a little bit as well. So
yeah, it's something that I guess. Eduardo Garcia had something in common with, he had family in the valley.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So kind of like, it gave us that comfort that, he would always, we felt like he was looking out for us because, he had some connection to the valley.
I used to play football against the teams out here. I don't know if that's good or bad, but coming from Coachella.
Yeah, and for some reason they changed the league. So we don't get to
Very
play
different.
with.
There's a lot more high schools out in the Coachella Valley than there was before than there was before. So it's a lot more schools, so that's part of it.
You mentioned you work for Intercare, and it's something that here in the valley we it's something that's always in our mind. The ability of having quality healthcare down here. There was some changes that happened during Assemblyman Garcia's term. What's your how do you plan on keep making sure that the people in the Imperial Valley have quality healthcare down here?
Well, I think it's twofold. I work in more of the administrative part of it, but I'm involved with the Promotoras program, the community outreach, the ones that helps go out and educate and signs people up for Medi-Cal, for Covered California, for the different programs. And, they do a lot of that work. I do a lot of the data, so I get to see what's happening, the needs and things. And then obviously during COVID, my job kind of switched. It was all hands on deck, right? I didn't get to stay home. We were out there, and we actually got to see all those holes in our healthcare system across, not only here, but obviously across the country, but especially in the Imperial Valley, Coachella Valley, California. We got to see a lot of those. So up close and personal, got to see where we really need some help. Part of the problem, I think, in all these rural areas, and especially in Imperial County, Calexico, and there, is the option of specialists. You can kind of get primary care. We have clínicas, we have other private groups out here, the county. We have a lot of different access to that. But once you start talking about specialized care, then it's, San Diego, Riverside, LA, it's movement that, 5 miles is like 500 miles to some people. It doesn't matter. There's no transportation. It's a whole other issue. You have childcare issues sometimes to be able to travel. So that's really important on trying to attract those types of services here locally, closer, or at least getting here part-time and start that way. But I see that as a really big issue. And then the other issue is just the rural nature of it is just access to get to the doctor in the first place. Yeah. I know Imperial County has some great programs. I know Calexico has the taxi where you can use the taxis and different things. And so those are really important. We've got to make sure we continue to support those programs because, they may have health care, but if they can't get to the clinic, especially seniors who have to go on a schedule, like they go every few months to make sure they're okay, they miss one appointment and it could be deadly for them, right? Yeah. Not having their medication or other different things. So I think those access things are really important. And then obviously, the hospitals are a big issue with the retrofits and all of that. And again, that kind of happened before I'm hopefully get there. But I think it's important that I understand and speak with all the different groups. I've been meeting with the different people, because if I'm so fortunate to get into the assembly, I may need to be the person that carries legislation to fix some of these issues that maybe didn't go the way they thought it was going to go, and we need some changes. So I'll be the person that hopefully, if I get in, will be able to address those issues. And again, that's not what I think. It's what the community is going to tell me, that, hey, this didn't work that way, but we want to do this. So that'll be my job, is to listen to the community and support in any way with those kinds of things.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned like the transportation part of the healthcare, because my dad recently had a quadruple bypass in San Diego, so just having that having to take my mom for that, so that he's not alone, like those little things that we don't we take for granted, like us that do have that opportunity to drive back and forth.
Well, and remember, this district, obviously we're here in Calexico talking about Calexico, but this district is made up of the Imperial Valley, Eastern Coachella Valley, Palo Verde Valley, French Valley. They're all, Needles areas. They're all smaller. They're all rural. They're kind of out of the way. And they have the same issue of access. And that's a really, really important issue. Like you said, if someone has certain things, you have cancer and you need to have certain things, you're going to travel. You're going to have to go, because there isn't that infrastructure here to be able to do it locally to help you. So
and talking about the area, District 36, there was a restructure of the area. Do you find that as a challenge, to be able to serve people from Calexico and also go all the way to Needles to?
I don't. I mean, other than driving, obviously that's gas, filling up the gas tank kind of a thing. But I don't see it as a challenge, because all the communities, while they all have different needs, they're all the same. Hardworking people trying to get by, raise their kids, go on vacation every once in a while, hopefully. And, they all love their sports teams, and, but it's the same type of hardworking people. It's very unique in that way. It's kind of like the old thing about, brothers and sisters fights, but they're all a family. They circle the wagons. That's kind of what this district is. Yeah. They all have that same really background of hardworking. We don't mind working hard, but just help us a little, right? Just don't forget us. Don't ignore us. Sometimes, we consider this really Southern California out here, right? Obviously. But you have areas like Imperial County and Blythe, and sometimes they don't get the attention they deserve.
Yeah, because I was looking, like I was mentioning to you, I took a picture of the
district.
The district, and yeah, it's like, it's really, really weird how they restructured it. And yeah, I mean, you touch all the way over here to Needles, and then down here to Blythe. Yeah. And then almost, close to Yuma. Was it
all the way down to Winter Haven in the corner out there by where the Kushan tribe is at. All that area is just one big district for me. So, but again, I think the thing is that all these communities, they just need a little help. And I think, starting with Victor Manuel Perez, who was here first, the assembly member that got elected here, and now with Eduardo Garcia, I think they've been a big emphasis, and especially in Calexico, where you look at the amount of money and resources they brought just to the New River, aside from some of the other programs that are out in Imperial County, but just the New River that had never been even looked at before until Victor Manuel Perez kind of said, hey, we need to shine a spotlight. He kind of started it. Eduardo Garcia, current assembly member, he kind of took it to a new level. And then, hopefully, if I'm lucky to get there, I'm going to take it and finish it. We'll finish it off. Hopefully, that'll be the end where we can control that and keep it moving. But I think that's also part of what our campaign is about: continuing the good work that's already there, not having stop and start over again or fight with the current people who are in charge up there. I mean, that you have to get along with the current people that are up there. And again, I think having this experience that I have in general, but working with the current assembly member and the past assembly member on these projects, understanding, having a good idea of it, puts me in a really good advantage to be able to highlight all of Imperial counties, all the whole district.
Yeah, and that was one of my questions. You have some political background, you've been involved in the Coachella Valley. Do you think that it's a plus that
Well, absolutely. I mean, I get that people like to go around and say, okay, I'm not a politician, I'm this. Well, what we do up there is political work, and you need to be able to work with other politicians, other elected officials, and you have to have a rapport with them. You can't call them names and then go back and ask them for help. That's not going to happen. And so we've built a good, friendship with some of the members already, just because of what I do on the school board, right? We go to Sacramento a lot. Having now a relationship with the current Speaker of the Assembly, Rob Rivas, who his district, strangely enough, looks a lot like our district. They have one big city in there, Monterey. But other than that, when I talk to him, I'm getting to know him better. But when I talk to him, everything he wants to champion are things that Imperial County needs, that Palo Verde needs, that all our district needs, because it's the same kind of community. Again, farm workers, agriculture, hardworking people. And so their climate's a little cooler, but other than that, it's the same, right? So that's an advantage, to be able to reach out to him and say, hey, I have this issue too. You have it in yours. How can we collaborate together and work, passing either legislation, or in some cases, I tell people, you don't have to pass legislation. You just got to fix the one that's already there. Sometimes all you need is to fix something or change it to allow some of those barriers to go away, and then allow, the communities to be able to help themselves in some ways. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. It's like that continuation of the program from one assembly member to the next assembly member to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and one project that is something that is really important for especially people from Calexico is the New River. There was a couple of setbacks because of
Storms,
the rain. Yeah, something that who would have thought we were gonna have
100-year storms 2 times, right?
So those kinds of things are always in people from Calexico. Everybody from the valley should kind of be worried about that, because we breathe that air that comes.
Well, it affects everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It just starts here. It passes through here, but then it ends up going all the way out to Salton Sea, obviously, that way. So, everybody needs to be aware of it, and it is an issue for everyone, not just City of Calexico. But and the other thing that again, other people don't understand: this is a border town. Calexico is a border town. So a lot of the issues that may seem similar are not, because of the impact. Every day, the population rises with people crossing the border and the traffic situation and all that. And people don't really understand that in other areas. They just think, oh, yeah, just go back and forth. And it impacts the community. And the thing that I've been talking to residents here in Calexico and some of the electeds is that they get all the impact, but a lot of these people that are crossing aren't in Calexico doing business. They're in other cities doing business. So the benefits other cities, but the impacts are the city of Calexico because of the border. And so those are things that you have to look at in a wider screen, or a wider scope, saying just because we have all the impacts but we get none of the benefits, we have to work together to make sure that this is evened out. It's more of an equity issue, right? It's about an issue of equity, right?
And in that sense, how do you balance, you mentioned Calexico, we have a little bit more impact when it comes to the traffic. How do you balance that? Like, say, I'm going to invest a little bit of time in Calexico than I am in Imperial.
Well, I think it's based on need. You going back to our equity, Calexico is going to need help from certain areas. But again, remember, we have a congressman out here, and I know this is 2 years in. This is a new area for him as well, because before when he got redistricted, Imperial County got added to that particular congressional district. But working with that congressional person, and just so happens he grew up 2 blocks from my house, so that helps, right? But working with them in conjunction, because a lot of this is federal issues as well. The state has taken the lead, thank God, in starting it. But I think now, Congress and the federal government really need to step up. And I have my preference for who I want to vote for president, right? But if that continues, all those infrastructure monies and all that stuff, that Inflation Reduction Acts and all that money's still there, because every year they add more money to the pot. It's a 10-year program. So working in conjunction with the congressman out here, Congressman Reese, we can work together with the federal, the state, the local, to really improve some of these things. And I think that's an area that because of the funding that's still going to be there, hopefully, at the federal government, It's already there. It's already been passed. It's already just got to go apply for it. I think that's really an area where we can really excel and try to get some things because of the border, because it's federal. And I think that's an area that we can really shine a light on.
You mentioned, the presidential election and, candidates. And no, I'm not going to ask you your preference, but I'm just the only.
Well, I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. You don't have to ask me. I'll go ahead and say it.
No, but my question is, how do you, the country's so divided right now because, the last, 8-10 years,
yeah.
We've been divided a lot because of other issues. How do you convince, all your constituents that everything that you do up there in Sacramento is something that is going to benefit, everybody?
Well, I think, I go back to the thing is, when growing up, it wasn't like, don't tell me, show me, right? Show me what you're going to do. Show me that you're going to care. Show me that you're going to show up. For just to start, show me that you're going to show up. And, I always laugh because I said I have this great experience being on a school board. I got to talk with the parents who like me, and I got to talk to the parents who are mad at me. You can't just not talk to them. And that's the same thing. We're going to talk to everybody who wants to talk to us, regardless of where they are in their positions, because that's the only way you learn things. Again, I'm on the board, and I trust my staff. We have good staff that gives us information. I still go talk to the parents. I still go talk to the students. I still go talk to the teachers. I still go talk to the bus drivers, because everybody has a different perspective, has a different view of how things should work, or maybe I have an idea that. So you have to do that, and I've been doing that, since I've been on the school board, because you don't get all the information from one place. You have to get information from everywhere, and those people who have a very different view of what they feel we should be doing, I want to meet with them too, because it's always important to know why they feel the way they do and why it's so important to them. Who knows? You might learn something, right? Heaven forbid that you talk to someone and you learn something from someone who doesn't agree with you, right? So, but I think those are the things that we just have to start doing. And again, I think over the years, my attitude has been like, really, we don't want to burn down the village to save it, so to speak, right? But we can all work together, and we're going to have differences. Yes, you celebrate the things you have in common, but you respect the differences that you have, and you have to. On my school district, we are in 3 cities, 2 counties, and a bunch of special districts. We have to work with everybody, regardless. I don't go ask them what they are, who they are. I don't ask parents what party they're from, but we got to go do it. But again, currently in the state, it's run by Democrats. Let's be, that's just where it is. So my advantage would be to be able to go in there and actually bring resources back, as has already been started. Continue that. So that's, I think, the biggest advantage for me.
Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I want to take this time to thank my sponsors. My friend Jake, Camilo Garcia, Eddie Lopez from Cultivating Ideas, this year's new sponsor, the Valley's champ, Gio Rebollar. And finally, I want to thank Will Torres and the whole VSN team, the Valley source for Imperial Valley sports. And if you want to become a sponsor, you can go to anchor.fm/Que Pasa Calexico. Hit the support button in the middle of the page, and you can sponsor the podcast from 99 cents to up to $10 a month. Your sponsorship helps the podcast sound and look better, and also reach out more people by doing paid promotions. I want to thank all my sponsors once again, and now back to the show. And one of your points in your flyers is that you want to focus on maybe lowering gas prices a little bit.
Yeah, and I know they just had a special session where they did some programs. I got to see all the details to that. Everybody seemed to kind of think long term it's going to work, but short term, maybe that's another thing. But I think California is going in that direction where we're trying to change from that to all electric. I have some issues with implementation that ain't quite here, especially a place like Imperial County. They're asking them to go all electric by their date. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that you have emergency vehicles that the technology is not there to do it. I mean, you have a fire, you can take a fire truck out there, and then in an hour you've wasted all your power, and you're going to have to tow a diesel powered generator to charge it up. That makes absolutely no sense. And a good example out here, and I'll just use it because it is, when IID has to go and repair things out here, they're big equipment. they're not driving on the roads, they're driving all over the place. So you're going to, again, have to tow a diesel-powered generator just to keep them going because of so those kind of things, we have to use common sense. It isn't even difficult. It's just a common sense. That technology is not ready. Cars, okay, maybe we're getting there. The price comes down, people can afford it. But for those especially emergency vehicles, I'm sorry, I don't want the fire trucks to run out of power.
Yeah.
If all we need to do is put some diesel, or even if it's CNG or something else, it's more available. We have to have better technology than we have currently for those type of equipment. And then you start talking about agriculture, right? There's a lot of those equipments that are kind of, how do you make them electric? I don't think you can right now. So those kind of issues, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about urban areas, but the people who represent urban areas, they don't think about those things. They think about what's in their districts, and they're doing their job. They're representing their constituents. So I think it's for us to make sure that they understand that California is not a one-size-fits-all state. And we have to look at different things for different areas, and how you implement certain programs and projects, and the timelines and the availability of technology like that.
Going to the electric vehicles, lithium is like this big thing that's happening here in the Imperial Valley. And I think, the county already voted how taxes are going to be distributed. Some people weren't, too happy about it. What are your thoughts on the whole lithium?
I decided to run in December, so I haven't been a part of the lithium from the beginning. So we're kind of educating ourselves and talking to all the different groups. But again, I have always had, and again, I'm a school board member, so I'm more of a local control guy, that wherever the main impact starts, that's where the fund should be started, and then you just wring it out, right? You just keep going further and further out. But the community that's going to get impacted the most should probably have most of the benefits. Now, in the case of transportation, obviously it's going to affect the whole county if you're going to have vehicles driving by. I understand that. I think most people understand that. But if you're going to go impact, especially small communities, they should have I don't want to say the bulk of it, but they should have what they need to mitigate any impacts, to help them at least get moving, have an opportunity for the jobs and all of those kinds of things. Now, I understand Imperial County as a whole, there's different needs that are going to need to be done in conjunction with that. Infrastructure needs, especially if we want to, instead of sending it out, keep those manufacturing jobs or some kind of, whatever related jobs here in Imperial County. And that might not all happen at the north end. That may happen in other areas. So then you tie that together. But again, I kind of saw it, and I'm kind of like, but it's, again, goes back to who represents you. The Board of Supervisors are beholden to the voters of Imperial County. And if they're not happy, they need to express their views with them. That's I don't want to say it's not our decision at the state, but that local government is the one that's going to, at least in the beginning, decide how that's going to be. So I think, again, I like wherever the main impact's going to be, that's where it should start. And then it kind of goes from there out to a broader area.
Yeah, because you would hope that those closer areas would have a growth, when it comes to housing.
Exactly.
So you would obviously need more money for infrastructure, sewage, right, electric, all those things that happen when you build more homes.
Oh, and you're talking about small communities like Nyland and Calipatria and some of the North End areas who don't have any internal infrastructure to go out for those funds to implement that in some ways because they have very small staffs. Right, and these things they take people to kind of implement. So they're not only going to need the funding and the infrastructure; they're going to need support to actually do the projects, to work on them, to make sure that it's not like one person running back and forth trying to do everything right from the city. So I think again, I tend to always support where the impacts are. The community is going to get impacted the most, regardless of where it is or who it is. That's where you should start, and then you kind of work your way out.
Was there a way that, in your mind, was there a way that they could word their plan where it said, if such area grew or there was an impact, they would get more money as needed? Or?
Exactly. And I think, because here's what's going to happen. And this is not good or a bad thing. This is just a real thing. is that projects always start, and somewhere down the road, something happens that nobody thought of or unintended consequences. So you're going to have to shift. So you're going to have that flexibility to be able to say, you know what? We thought this was going to be a big issue, but it's not. This turned out to be a big issue. So you're going to need to be able to shift. And that's the flexibility of local government, your local elected officials being able to do that. Because I guarantee you, they're going to get down the road and something else is going to happen. They're going to go, God, we didn't even think about that. But that's all, it all works like that. Unintended consequences from good intended legislation, you always get unintended consequences. But the trick is, the responsible thing is to go back and be able to adjust to fix those things that you didn't think about at the first.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you there's going to be something.
Yeah. Or maybe, like, leave it open so that, there's space for you to, move money around. So
absolutely.
You're in education, in the school board. Imperial Valley has an amazing college, Imperial Valley College.
Absolutely.
Aspen winner. And how would you kind of help it when it comes to like making sure that we're training people here in the valley with to handle the lithium project?
They've already started a great program there. I mean, the thing is to make sure that you create more space for them to grow and to continue doing that. One of the things that we've done in our school district, and thanks to my colleagues, and again, I don't do anything by myself. It's a team effort. You work with your colleagues. You work with the other cities. If I come up here and said, I did this, I did that, I'm lying, right? So you have to work as a team. But my colleagues on the board, we've been really big on CTE programs in our schools, and then making sure that translates over to our community college over there, which is called the Desert. And I know that's the same thing that's happening here in the Imperial County. We need to expand those programs, and not only for our students coming out of high school, but there's going to be people that their jobs are going to kind of change based on automation, based on technology, based on something. And those people are going to need to go back to kind of get workforce development training to change careers. Community college is the place where that can happen the best. It's reliable. It's cheaper than the big institutions and stuff. But we need to make sure that we don't provide barriers for them to allow them to do certain things. Nursing programs are very important. They're always full, right? They don't have enough room. How do we expand the nursing program? And we need nurses, but we can't open up more nursing spots. So that's the dilemma. We have to find ways to help that. And I think in conjunction with high schools and even middle schools to an extent, start exposing our students to these types of programs early on. Because look, I like to live in the real world. We all as parents want our kids to go to college and university and graduate and come back and do something, we want them doctors and lawyers. And that's a dream, right? That's a parent's dream. But the reality of that dream is that not all our kids are going to do that. And not all our kids want to do that. We need to make sure that we have options for them to start looking at those different kinds of careers. I was at a community college event, I think it was a couple of days ago, and half the students that I talked to aren't transferring out from the college to go to a university. They went there. One of them was there. He was doing the HVAC program because he has a job. If once he passes that, somebody offered him a job because they don't have people, right? You had other people who are there starting businesses, so they're taking certain classes there to help them with the business, to learn marketing and the different things. So especially some of the young people have a different vision than some other people had. Some of them want to go to the four-year university. They have a vision, and some of them don't. We have to start preparing for those careers that they need, not the ones that we think they need from 20 years ago, right? It's different. It's all changed. So I think that's one of the most important things in education that I think we can do. And then also we need to support our schools, our parents, our communities, our teachers, and the bus drivers. And I joke, yes, teachers are the hub of education in there. But in our district, and I bet you here, without the bus drivers getting the kids to school, you have no kids. Without the cafeteria feeding them, without the safety supervisors there, without the secretaries calling parents and the nurses, and it's a big operation. And yes, teachers are at the center of that because they're with the kids and they're doing the education. But all the things that have to happen for the kids to even get into the classroom, we can't forget about them sometimes, and sometimes we do.
Yeah, I'm part of CSEA here.
Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm I'm in IT, so
Okay.
during the pandemic, we were really
Oh yeah.
essential.
Well, we learned a lot during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I know, but again, it's like like the IT department's not going to go up and say, "Hey, we educate your kids," but that's the communication. That's to make sure that their iPads are working so they play a very important role. And sometimes we tend to forget. We overshadow them, saying, "Well, they're just IT or they're just this." Again, it takes everybody working together to get this stuff done.
Yeah,
And
here we call it we're the backbone of.
Yeah, exactly. Our kids aren't going to learn if they're not eating, right? We know that. So our cafeteria staff is an important part of that. All of it is. And that's why I say sometimes we forget there's a whole other group out there that we need to, the people that do the crosswalks, getting the kids safely across the street, that's an important part as well. So, we can't overlook that there's a lot of different components to education, and we, can't forget about them.
Yeah.
Sometimes we kind of, oh yeah, whatever. No, we can't.
The district is made up of a lot of agricultural workers, which can in terms goes hand in hand with people that are transit. They follow la corridas, right?
Yeah.
Some of them live up north, some of them down here, some of them Mexicali. How do you entice, especially like people from Mexicali that, or not entice them, but like help them out to maybe stay here and not, have to cross?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with just cost of living. I think mostly, I'm assuming a lot of it is that. Some friends that I have that they live down past Mexicali, they're a little more into Rosarito and Ensenada and those areas, but it's a cost of living thing. They can live a lot cheaper. And so what you have to do is you have to set up a system out here that entices them back, so to speak, give them, and I'm not saying it's going to be cheaper because probably it'll never be cheaper, but make sure that the incentives are in place, that it makes it worth their while to be here, right? Instead of going out there and crossing every day, because that's what they do. They cross every day. But again, as I mentioned earlier, they don't necessarily stay in Calexico. They go somewhere else, but the Calexico gets the impacts, but not the benefits. And so those are things that you can work on doing. And again, the other thing is housing. They're over there because there's no housing to live in. And if you could afford a house, which is kind of tough, you can't find one because there's no inventory. Yeah. So that's the second part of that. I have a 23-year-old son who's trying to find a house. It's tough out there for him. It's really tough. And again, in city of Coachella, the starting homes are $500,000, and they ain't all that. They're just a house. And it's $500,000, and I'm like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. So my son's like, well, I don't think I can live here anymore, right? It's like, so but then they have an apartment, but then apartments are hard to come by, so everybody's fighting for apartments so they can raise the rent because everybody wants them. If you don't want to be here, somebody else will move in, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I got 10 people behind you, so don't complain, right? Yeah. But if you were able to build more and make that inventory, then the prices, hopefully, I tell people I don't think they're ever going to go back, but at least they stabilize and they start allowing the cost or your salaries and your raises and that to kind of catch up a little bit, and it'll stabilize. But it's very important. But again, it goes back to infrastructure, especially in rural areas.
Yeah, because even here, my brother bought a fixer-upper, and he paid, I think it was like $300 for a fixer-upper. Yeah. Not even ready to live in, Yeah. So it's like, I don't think, anywhere in California is cheap too.
And we complain out here, obviously, because of the prices, but you go into some other areas and they're like $1 million homes that are just, again, they're not all that. They're just very expensive because there's not a lot of them and everybody's fighting for them. So you can set whatever price you want. It's like if there's only one of something, you can set your price. But if there's 1,000 of them, then you kind of have to, that's a competition, right? Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are afraid of low-income apartments. I grew up in low-income apartments just down the block here. Yeah. So to me, it's I see it as a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people see people who kind of do it as kind of like a career. They live.
Well, look. No, there's going to be people who take advantage of any situation.
And I'm not saying that,
right?
It's
but
not
you know
coming,
what I mean, right?
No, but it's not coming from me. It's coming from conversations that I've had with people. Huh?
But again, I think it's that you can pick any group, any occupation, anything, and you're always going to have people who try to take advantage of the system. The problem is that that's not overwhelming majority of people are not doing that. Unfortunately, we get the poster child that they put out there, and everybody's like this, and they're all like, no, they're not. And again, housing again, but we need all the housing, because how low-income housing works is that you get people in there, but the people who are living in the current low-income housing, they need to be able to move to the next level and the next level, and it creates inventories. Out here I know some, but in the Coachella Valley, we have a lot of people who live in trailer parks, right? So those low-income apartments are their step to get them out of a trailer, right? And then the kids hopefully grow up, they go to school, they get a better job, then they move into the first house, right? The single-family home, and then hopefully when they have kids, they grow into the bigger home. But again, that just creates a pipeline for other people to keep moving up and up. So you need all the housing. You need the low income. You need the attainable home, the affordable home. And yeah, you need some of the higher end as well, because that balances out the taxes as well. I mean, you can't have all low income in your community and your tax base is going to be nothing. And then how do you grow? So you have to have a little bit of everything. And one of the things that, I've seen a lot of those self-help homes that are, they do the sweat equity to get the down payment, and those houses are nicer than some of the old houses that are like standing next to you that they're complaining, I don't want the low income housing. You build that housing and it looks a lot better than some of the other ones in the neighborhood, and people will take care of it because they put their sweat into it, right? So there's always going to be people who try to take advantage of situations. Yeah, it's just a reality, but you cannot do the broad brush and paint everybody that they're all like that. That's like saying all Latinos are like this, or all, whatever are like this. It's not real. Everybody's different. Everybody has different perspectives, and 90% and 99% of the people are going to do the right thing, but there's always that percentage that's not.
Yeah, and even billionaires and corporations take advantage of the system, and the chunk of money that they're taking away from the economy or whatever is way bigger than what somebody living in
the cost. And you can see that when they jack up. Gas is a perfect example. It goes up 20 cents because it's the holidays, because they know everybody's going to go for the holidays. There's no reason to do that. They just do it because they can get away with it, because you got to drive and you got to put it in. And then instead of coming back down 20 cents, it only comes down maybe 10 cents. So they have that extra, and that's what they do. They're business people, right? They try to take advantage of everything. But again, that's our job, to make sure that they're not allowed to take advantage of the consumer and people who are just trying to survive. Yeah. Because you'll hear the people complain that says, gas is too high while they're filling up their boats, right, to go somewhere. But the problem is that the people that are just trying to get to work every day back and forth, it affects them the most and the hardest.
Yeah, and it's not only gas, but a lot of the food prices go up because it costs more to.
How is it in the Imperial Valley where you grow the food? It's that expensive, right? That's another kind of a mystery, right? How is that it goes and comes back, and
Yeah, we grow the vegetables here. We pay a lot more.
You pay more for it than just to come back. So that's part of it. But again, you have to make everyone accountable, and we're not saying that you're going to be unfair to people. That thing about paying your fair share, that goes across the board. Everybody should have a little sweat equity into it as well. But, you can't have, someone who's a billionaire paying the same kind of, amount as someone who's like a teacher, right? And in some cases that happens because they have all the resources to be able to game the system. Now, if they all pay the same percentage, cool. That's how it's supposed to work.
And not to mention that, year after year, they make more and more profits. So it's like, they're still trying
you have to raise the rates because this, and then you're making twice as much as you did the year before. It's like, excuse me? How is that like a consumer problem? That's we want more money problem.
We're almost at 6 o'clock, and I want to, respect the time that, you have to leave. Anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't cover that you would like to?
I think in the end, it's just, I'm running for this seat to, I want to help people. That's kind of what I've done all my life. My dad, I grew up in a union household. My dad was a retired laborer. He worked outside. He taught me about hard work. And he says, if you want to do this, do something else inside and it's air conditioned. But I think that's a mentality to bring. I'm a product of this district. I look like the district. I kind of grew up in that way. And I have those same ideals. It isn't about progressive or non-progressive. It's about common sense. We talked about the electric vehicles of the fire and, some of those equipment. That's common sense. That's not for or against. That's just like reality of life. So I like to think of myself that I live in the real world where we actually implement things and get things done. And that's my pledge, to work hard and to do that if I'm elected to this district.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate, that your team reached out. And nothing but luck in your campaign.
All right. Well, thank you. And hopefully we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. See how it turns out.
Sounds good. All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.